So I remember a couple of videos back, I read an extra chapter. I read it because it was little, so it was just short. And so the numbers are a little off, and I don't actually know what's what. But this one, whoa, as everything starts to fall, is chapter 17. Let me just straighten out this situation here. What the hell? There we go. All right. Chapter 17. And so the epigraph. It seems to me that our three basic needs for food, security, and love are so mixed and mingled and entwined that we cannot straightly think of one without the others. MFK Fisher. It became painfully obvious that I shouldn't be working at the factory. I wasn't learning about carpentry. I spent every weekend coughing up sawdust, but I still smoked. My lungs ached. I drank directly from bottles of Triamenic cough syrup. One Saturday morning, I went to have breakfast at Dot's Diner. Dot was Nancy Van Loon's mother. Nancy was in the beginning of building what would turn out to be a mini restaurant empire in Boulder. She had Nancy's, the restaurant at the bottom of an old Victorian. Nancy opened the diner to give Dot something to do. The diner shared a small building with a Sinclair station. Gas fumes wafted through the screen door. There was a counter and 6 booths, and they had decorated the walls with 40s-style pin-up girl pictures. You felt like you might see Studebakers pull up for a fill-up of gas and a quick coffee. They had Southern breakfast, 2 eggs, grits, red-eye gravy, ham, and a biscuit. I looked back into the kitchen, and there was Michael of the leaky quiche dough. Soon after the diner opened, Dot was diagnosed with cancer. Michael was hired to cook. He was happy to see me because they needed to hire another cook who would also wash dishes. It seemed like half a step backwards, but it was better than coughing up sawdust. Sometimes I worked at Nancy's, the restaurant. The first time I saw a gourmet magazine, I was at Nancy's house. I used Gourmet and Sunset for ideas about soup, lunch specials, and omelet fillings. From Gourmet, I learned about chefs like James Beard, Alice Waters, and food writers like MFK Fisher. I learned more and more about food, but I was also learning a sensibility. I was learning about quality ingredients and skilled preparation. In the 50s, there was a quest for faster, labor-saving ingredients and devices like cake mixes, TV dinners, instant everything, and the blenders, toasters, and crockpots in which to assemble them. In the restaurant world, faster preparation meant higher turnover and more money. Drive-thrus reigned supreme. Homemade became an anachronism, or at its worst, a code for poor. But in the 70s, food needed to be authentic. People involved in the food industry positioned themselves with their choices of ingredients and their methods of preparation. Nancy's biscuits and gravy were the mainstay of her poor Southern childhood. Now they were paying her for her summer vacations in Kenya. Michael left to pursue a career as a wine salesman, and I became the manager of the diner. Now I was making those biscuits. When I walked through the streets of Boulder, people would ask me, "Aren't you Dot?" Boulder was the home of herb growers, tea makers, and tofu eaters. People did the S training, got Rolfed at the Rolf Institute. Naropa opened. I was interested in all of it, and all of it cost money. There was a local band, Navarro, who played a kind of new age rock. Carole King had been hired to be their backup band for a tour. They had 2 albums of their own and played on one by Miss King. As a whole group of people known as the Navarro family showed up. Let me try that again. And a whole group of people known as the Navarro family showed up when they played in town. When Navarro played at Shannon's, the cowboy music fans sat in the back drinking whiskey and making jokes. The Navarro women wore their hair long and loose, and they wore long calico skirts and danced with their arms waving above their head. 2 of the waitresses at Dot's were part of the Navarro family. They were part of the long hair and long skirt girl group. I put my country western loyalty behind and moved to the front room, where they were happily dancing. I became particularly good friends with the bass player of Navarro, Rob Galloway. When he came for breakfast at Dot's, I sat with him and talked about the new age. I still wore my cowboy boots, but I began to sport an Ohm necklace. The fleur-de-lis did go out of business. A cook from the floor Danny started to cook in Nancy's restaurant. Once or twice a week, he worked with me at Doth's. He was another New Age tutor for me. I hope you like this, he said, and he handed me Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. Yogananda wrote about his own spiritual development and his guru, Babaji, the immortal yogi Christ of India. Danny had a sanguine smile, a Buddha boy half smile, and dark sparkling eyes that held me sway. I would have read the phone book if he had suggested it. And I remembered that I had once seen Peter Tork of the Monkees reading autobiography in a 16 magazine photo. Thanks. I've been reading the Carlos Castaneda book you gave me, I said coyly. Good. He seemed pleased. What do you think about it? It's great. So what is a brujo? Just keep reading. You'll figure it out. And this Sunday, I want you to come to meet my meditation teacher, Acharya Nityananda. Danny's tone became increasingly ebullient. Nityananda and his wife Madhavi are into everything. If Danny was doing it, I wanted to do it. I wasn't happy with the Nichiren Shoshu form of Buddhism. There was a puritanical bend to the practice. If you worked harder and selflessly, you would be rewarded. It seems to me that I was chanting, working hard, and not getting what I wanted. During the week, Nityananda was a bagger at a local grocery store, but every Sunday night, we would go to his house in the suburbs, and he would guide us in meditation. He and Madhavi met in India when she was there studying with a guru. I scheduled a private meeting with Nityananda during which he gave me a mantra. Madhavi was a rebirther. I went to an introductory meeting in which she explained the process. Rebirthing was a breathing technique that helped to surface birth memories and release the trauma of the event from the unconscious. The release of the birth memory frees the breath and shifts a person's consciousness. Specifically, a person could make a shift from the idea that life is a struggle to a sense that one is connected to something larger. In rebirthing philosophy, the thought that life is a struggle first occurs at the moment when a baby takes the first breath. A baby has been in a small dark place contained in something larger. Embryonic fluid moved in and out of the baby's lungs. Then suddenly the baby is in a brighter, colder, larger room and someone slaps it, causing an inadvertent inhale. The lungs are still full of fluid, only some of which is expelled, and that first breath is a struggle. Breathing becomes linked to a somatic memory of struggle and pain. The memory is stored or held in the muscles. Breathing in a connected, rhythmic manner surfaces that memory, and it can be experienced and released from the muscle memory. A person may then notice that their now free breath creates the awareness that they're still connected to something larger, spirit. The identity of a human separated from our first larger something, our mother, shifts to a divine identity. We realize that we are now part of the source of everything and we need to live with more aliveness in our body. That aliveness is pure energy, and if we can relax into the energy, we can have an immortal body. It might seem odd that a person with such ambivalence and conflict about her body would be interested in physical immortality. I wasn't exactly. What I was interested in was spirituality that felt active in my life and in my body. Things in my life at that time seemed to be filled with synchronicity, and I wanted to follow all the signs. I began doing rebirthing sessions with Madhavi. In a rebirthing session, you breathe. You pull on your inhale, relax on your exhale, and connect the two. It's a circular breath. Your body often begins to tingle, and there is a peak at the end of which you feel deeply relaxed. Once a week, I went to Madhavi's house, lay on a mat in the meditation room, and let her cover me with a blanket. She was such a warm and nurturing woman. She would stroke my forehead. Now pull deeper on your inhale. That's it. Relax completely on your exhale. Ah. My body would tingle, get tight, and then release. Then we would talk about my feelings of anger and resentment for my mother and father. I didn't have birth memories, but I loved the way rebirthing felt. And I really loved having the focused attention of Madhavi. And after every session, I would buy a frozen chocolate cake and eat it before it thawed. I was always starving. I always wanted chocolate cake, and I could never wait. Leonard Orr was the man who developed this process. Leonard said that he loved reading metaphysical literature in the bathtub. He spent hours lying in bathtubs. He began to watch the impact of breathing on his body. He created the whole system through his own experience in the bathtub. The first rebirthing sessions were done in hot tubs with snorkels and nose plugs in a creation of the womb. Eventually, Leonard noticed that people were having the same experience, whether there was water or not. He deduced that the breath stimulated the birth memory, and he believed that the consciousness of the rebirther created the psychic safety. Theoretically, rebirthers had released their own birth trauma. He gave seminars about what he referred to as the 5 biggies: birth, family patterns, specific negatives, every individual's dominant negative idea about themselves and life, past lives, the unconscious death urge, and how to unravel them. Leonard built his work on the idea that thought is creative and you create your own reality with thought. All his seminars were essentially the same. If you changed the way you thought, you could change your life. He was living in San Francisco, where he had developed a following from the burgeoning human potential movement. He also did a seminar about weight. He proposed that you could lose weight by changing the way you thought about your body. You could change the way you thought about your body with affirmations. If you daily wrote a list of positive thoughts about your body, eventually you would believe the thoughts in your body would obey the new belief, no matter what you ate. Now I came home from rebirthing sessions with my frozen chocolate cake and filled notebooks with phrases like, "My body is highly pleasing to me," or "Everything I eat creates health and aliveness," while I poked at the solid mass of icy chocolate. Leonard did fun things at the weight seminar, like bring in lots of candy and then laugh at everyone's negativity about the sugar. He had a set of maxims, one of which was that a chocolate chip cookie once a day was reason enough to live forever. The bottom line was that food should not hold sway in the life of a divine being. If you were truly in touch with your divine self, you should be able to process the sugar into energy. So if you continue to do rebirthing, write affirmations, and process your stuff, eventually your body would be perfect. And perfect, of course, was thin. I ate the cake, wrote the affirmations, and waited for my body to get the message. And I tried to eat with more awareness. I tried to chew slowly and really taste the food. I noticed that I barely chewed food and swallowed in chunks that hurt my throat. As I began to slow down, I noticed the flavor of food. Frozen chocolate cake was too cold to have much of a taste. I pushed myself to stop eating it and watch my thoughts. Years of restricting my eating left me with a panicky need to eat what was considered forbidden food. I felt I needed to eat in a hurry, and I wasn't really getting the pleasure. I waited for the cake to thaw. I ate less of it. I learned how to experience food in my mouth. I heard that Leonard was coming to Boulder to do an introduction to rebirthing seminar. I also heard that he could look at you and see if you were clear, or if you weren't clear, he would ignore you. He didn't ignore me. He smiled at me with mischievous eyes. He had a mustache that he pulled into the corner of his mouth to chew on. He was very cute. He smiled at me all through the evening. I felt like he did the whole seminar for me. He asked us all to introduce ourselves, and in my introduction, I made jokes about being a cook in the best diner in Boulder. "Where is it? Let's go there tomorrow for breakfast." That immediate response from Leonard Orr felt like magic. I tingled with a combination of shyness and excitement. I couldn't identify the sensation. It wasn't the way I felt when I watched Dusty sing, but it was similar. It wasn't like the feeling I had when I met my father, but it was similar. It wasn't like the feeling I had when I talked to Rob or Danny. It was expectant and open. He did come to the diner that next day. I tried to concentrate on my cooking, but I kept looking at Leonard, who sat at the end of the counter with some friends eating biscuits and smiling at me. I stopped cooking long enough to go out and talk to him. "Are you in the one-year seminar?" he asked. "Not yet." The one-year seminar was a group of people, most of whom were involved in rebirthing, committed to clearing their consciousness of all blocks they had and ultimately attaining physical immortality. There was a traveling group of seminar leaders who came to town and focused on different topics: money, sex, and birth. It was also expensive. I eventually pulled together the cash to join the Boulder one-year seminar. One of the one-year seminar leaders told us that a story of a rebirther who had made a journey to India where she met Babaji from the Yogananda book, the Babaji from the book Danny had given me, the book I'd seen Peter Tork reading. The rebirther showed us the glossy pictures of Baba. He looked like a rock star. He had shoulder-length black hair and a beautiful round face with intense brown eyes. I was in a swoon. I felt connected to a large and mysterious story. Babaji was in India, and I had the address. The next time I saw Leonard, he was giving a lecture on Babaji and immortality. He'd been to India and met Baba and was back to tell the tale. I approached him tentatively at the end and told him the story about the book and Peter Tork and Madhavi and all the amazing steps that brought me to the place. Hang on. So this chapter is really long. I'm going to finish the paragraph. He smiled while he listened, eyes beaming. So, when are you going to go to India? I can't go to India. I don't have money. I have to work at the diner. Well, I'm thinking of giving out some scholarships. Maybe I should give one to you. What? Leonard just smiled and walked away. He was off to another town. So yeah, I'm going to take a break on that chapter, and I will come and finish it tomorrow. Thank you.